Hi, so today we welcome Ross Stevens onto Foster Denovo Talks. In this episode, Ross talks about joining us as a self-employed advisor during COVID.
The way that I operate best is by meeting clients face to face, and obviously that was almost impossible during COVID. So that in itself created quite a few issues.
Then moving into an employed role where we asked him to take over a book of business from 3 retiring partners and how he dealt with that and built trust with a client.
I thought I'd be managed and it would be very different. However, it's not. It's just the word employed as opposed to self-employed. They were 3 individual characters who worked in 3 different ways. So it was about meeting them and ultimately we needed to trust one another. It took me a while to make it mine. And I think you just needed time for that. You couldn't rush it. But yeah, I treat it as my own business.
So check it out. Hi Ross, thanks for joining us today. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you.
Jolly good. So Ross, tell us what first attracted you to financial services.
I think looking back, it was probably the fact that my mother and father worked in banking and finance. So that probably was my earliest exposure to sort of the industry and memories of it, which I think probably shaped where I am, today. When I was in higher education, I worked in client-facing roles, which I really enjoyed, building rapport with the customers and generally felt that it was something that I was quite strong at. So when I then left university, I was speaking to my friends, a lot of them have gone into financial services and they all seem to be doing pretty well and enjoying themselves, which led me on to, securing my first role as a broker.
Okay, tell me a little bit about the role of a broker.
Well, it's quite a high pressured environment. It's obviously sales, but it was very enjoyable. But the only thing about it that it didn't have is that it didn't have. I didn't really have the sort of role where I was able to build those client relationships. It was more about a transactional type of role. So really, that led me on to my next role, which was a protection advisor.
Okay, protection advisor. You don't hear of lots of protection advisors anymore. So it used to very much be a path, didn't it? It used to be that people would possibly do admin, then paraplanning, and then they'd move into the first advice role, and that was protection advisor. And then finally they'd move on to sort of, holistic financial planning. So talk to me about that protection advisor role.
Well, as you say, it was quite an old school route into financial advice, but it gives you, the foundations that you need in order to be able to do that role. It was my first sort of way of dipping my toe into an advisory role. You understand the advice process and meeting client needs and things like that. So it was a very valuable way of getting into the industry.
Okay. And what made you move on then? What was the sort of reason that you decided to take on a full financial planner role?
Well, I think when I was seeing clients, I could see opportunity within their, financial planning that they didn't have. So that was quite frustrating that I couldn't help them beyond that. So I thought to myself, the next logical step would be to become a financial advisor.
Yeah, because I imagine you're sitting in meetings, aren't you, talking to them? You can see what they need help with, and you're really not allowed to, right?
No,
you're not, registered to do that sort of thing. So I can imagine that's pretty frustrating. Okay, so then you did your exams.
Yep.
Did your level 4?
Yeah, did my level 4, and then I came over to Foster Denovo in 2019.
Yes, you did. So we met in 2019, didn't we?
Yep.
And you came to join us as a self-employed partner.
That's right.
Okay, so you started your journey how?
Well, when I first joined FD, I went through the academy, which is a very structured way of learning how to apply the qualifications that you have with clients. And it was very valuable because when you get qualified, you don't really know how that fits into the role. You've passed.
It's the academics, isn't it?
That's right.
Basically.
That's right. And it was very structured in the way that if I was weak in a particular area, we would concentrate more on that. So it was a bespoke sort of academy of training.
Yeah, and it does make me chuckle sometimes, and we should change the name because it's not an academy as people imagine it. So it's not that you've got 20 people in a classroom all learning together and then passing as a cohort. This is very much, one-on-one or possibly 2 people that are doing it at the same time. And therefore it really does, as you say, focus on exactly what your needs are with whoever the right people from a business are to do that. And it also shapes itself around people potentially having a different role at the same time. If they're new into financial advice, they could be still working in another job, so they can do it around that. So it tends to work best. So you came out of the academy when? When was that?
I think it was maybe mid 2020.
Okay,
Yeah.
so right when COVID hit,
Yes.
basically.
Yeah.
Okay. How did that work out for you?
Well, it was quite a daunting time
Mm.
for everybody. Starting out as a self-employed financial advisor in a pandemic wasn't ideal.
And you didn't have a client bank, did you, when
No,
you started?
I had a small number of
Yeah.
clients, as it were. So, and the way that I operate best is by meeting clients face to face, and obviously that was, almost impossible
Yeah.
during COVID. So that in itself created quite a few issues. But we got over them. Everybody jumped onto Teams and and Zoom. We got through it.
Yeah. And I think it got to a stage, didn't it, where you and I were having conversations, and we looked to offer you an employed role.
Yes.
It's probably about 2 years later, I think, wasn't it, from
Mhm.
from when COVID started. And I think it's fair to say that you were a little reticent. I thought you'd come towards me with open arms, going, "Yes, this is a great idea," and you
Yeah.
weren't wild about the idea to start with. Why was that? No
Like-
pressure, by the way.
No, I think that's fair to say. I don't think I really understood how similar the roles were.
Okay.
I work very autonomously, so I thought I'd be, managed and it would be very different. However, it's not. It's just the word employed as opposed to self-employed.
And I think it's great that you said that, because that's what people think, isn't it? They think, my God, I'm in an employed role and everything's going to change and everyone's going to manage my holiday and micromanage and all this sort of stuff. And actually, you're just still doing the same job, aren't you?
There's no difference at all.
Yeah. No. Okay. That's great. And so obviously the role that we offered you was to take over a retiring partners, in fact, 3 retiring partners, books of business.
Yes.
So normally we do 1 retiring partner. We thought, no, Ross can have 3. So talk to me about how that was. How was the initial stages and then moving further on?
Yeah. So the initial stage was for me to meet the 3 retiring partners because we knew of each other, but we didn't know each other. So first of all, it was getting to know them. They were 3 individual characters who worked in 3 different ways. So it was about meeting them, and ultimately we needed to trust one another because these guys were retiring and giving me a client bank they built up over 30 plus years. So the first bit of the hurdle to get over was for us to get on with each other and trust each other and see that a good job would be done.
Yeah. And so you were building the trust with them first.
Mm-hmm.
And then how did it transition into meeting the clients and taking over the client bank?
Yeah. So once we'd done the, the initial introductions, we then arranged meetings with the clients, whether that was face to face or over Zoom or Teams, whatever the clients felt most comfortable with. And, you've only got an hour really in those meetings, maybe an hour and a half sometimes to get to know them, to ask the right questions, and for them to see a little bit about yourself as well, which is really important. So that time is key.
Well, that's the tough thing, isn't it? Because you're going into a meeting and you're going in with the partner that they've known for years and trust implicitly.
Yeah.
And then you're sort of there sort of saying like, hi, I'm the new guy, the new kid on the block.
Yeah.
But you've got to give over some of yourself so that they remember you and trust you and all of that sort of stuff. So did you find that hard or?
Yeah, it was challenging. I think there was probably quite a lot of trust there already because they'd been dealing with the existing partners for so many years, and now the partners are making another recommendation that I'm that person. So there were differing levels of sort of trust with each client. Some took a little bit more convincing than others, but that was to be expected. But on the whole, it was received really well. I think I probably talked about introducing a couple of things that they hadn't heard of before or weren't using a lot of, for example, cash flow modeling. And perhaps I was able to provide a bit more of a technological advance, perhaps to these clients. So it was about showing them that I've got things that I think I can do that perhaps we're not doing enough of, without showing up the advisors to say you should have done more of that, that kind of thing. So it's all about a balance.
Well, that's it, isn't it? It's a fine line, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you don't want to go in and say, look, these guys aren't doing this or whatever. It's just different.
Exactly.
And advisors work differently, and it's
right.
hoping that you get that across to the clients. And I think it's nearly been about 2.5 years that you've been managing this client bank now. So how has that sort of progressed to where we are now with the clients? Because it looks quite different, I would say.
Yeah, it looks very different. I mean, I took on a lot of clients.
Yeah.
So,
sorry about that.
Yeah, it's okay. I had a huge amount of clients. So initially it was relatively daunting, because I went from having a handful to to hundreds.
Yes.
And so I had to take a step back and go, right, how am I going to approach this? Because you had 3 different styles of working and dealing with clients. Servicing was very similar because obviously it was it was good, but I then had to create my own way of working with these clients. So that was a challenge, and that took time. But I think I made enough of an impression in the first meeting that when I saw them again, they remembered me, because sometimes that's a challenge, because they'd been with the advisors for so long. That it got easier as time went along.
And it's safe to say that you now see it as your client bank, don't you? I mean, before, when we first used to talk about it, it was very much a case of the clients or the bank I've looked after. And now you talk about your practice and your clients and all the rest of it. And it's a really nice transition to have watched and to see how it is now. Is that how you feel about it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it took me a while to make it mine. And I think you just needed time for that. You couldn't rush it. But yeah, I treat it as my own business, as they're my own clients. Obviously with Foster Denovo providing the support.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you have got a great support team around you, haven't you, that are second to none. So shout out to Louise and all of those people that you work with, and Hetty, etc. So now we're sort of 2.5 years in from this role. What do you see on the horizon? What do you see coming next? Or should I be telling you?
Well, that's quite often how it works, isn't it? So, but no, I want to maintain the existing clients, look after them, keep them up to date with changes in the industry, and make sure that they're looked after and serviced correctly. When it comes to financial advice, people's situations and lives change, regulation changes, and you have to adapt. So, it's continue that level of service, but ultimately grow the client bank in the future.
Yeah, and I think that's something you've touched on there, regulation, because Consumer Duty came and reigned all over us, didn't it? So, we've done a really good job, but, you had to take on a new client bank and then apply all of the Consumer Duty rules that we had within the firm to them as well.
Yes.
Which was no mean feat.
No, it was quite a challenge. I mean, Consumer Duty in itself, I think, is a good thing. But in terms of timing, for me, it presented quite a challenge again. But we got there. But there were a lot of additional meetings on top of the ones we'd already had in order to get the reservicing agreement signed.
No, absolutely. And I think, to be honest with you, seeing the change that you've made from the client bank from when you first started to now is absolutely fantastic, and it's brilliant, and you really have done an outstanding job. So I might ask you to do another one soon, if that's all right. But we'll watch this space, shall we?
Let's see how it goes. But why not? Yeah.
No, absolutely. Honestly, you've done a brilliant job. So
thank you.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, Ross.
My pleasure.